Assalamu alaikum, dear students. How are you? I hope you all are safe and sound at your homes. May Allah Pak protect us all. Ameen. As you know that university has not yet decided about conducting exams or otherwise. So keeping in mind the prevailing situation of corona pandemic, we have to move forward. Henceforth, we are going to start with our fourth year syllabus of English literature. If university announces exams for third year, we will take a break and start revising our third year syllabus. So here you can see that we are going to study some poets from different ages. A play by Shakespeare, Macbeth, that is his famous tragedy, and another play by George Bernard Shaw, Arms and the Man. So let's start with poetry. The very first poet we are going to discuss is John Keats. In our WhatsApp group, you all have done your basic study about what is poetry and its different forms. You have also learned about Keats' life history, in brief, and themes of his poetry, etc. I think we are now ready to start with his first ode, that is Ode on Grecian Urn. Here you can see pictures of urns, and you can find many more on internet. It is said that an English adventurer brought some pieces of Greek art to England and they were displayed in a museum. Keats perhaps got a chance of seeing an urn like these that stirred his imagination, and he composed this beautiful ode in May 1819. On these urns, some scenes have been depicted, and they bring some questions to our mind around these pictures. Decorative borders are clearly visible. The first stanza, this ode has 5 parts, and each part consists of 10 lines. Now imagine that Keats is looking at the urn and he addresses it by 3 different names. See, he says, "Thou still unravished bride of quietness, thou foster child of silence and slow time, sylvan historian, who canst thus express a flowery tale more sweetly than our rhyme." So the names he has used here are unravished bride of quietness, foster child of silence and slow time, and finally he gives it the name of sylvan historian. The urn is quiet as it cannot speak. It is still perfect. The passing time has not damaged it. The urn has survived silently through centuries. Time has been kind to it and taken care of it as somebody takes care of his child. Sylvan historian, who canst thus express a flowery tale more sweetly than our rhyme. Sylvan means related to woods. Here we can say that Keats calls the urn a rural or pastoral historian because different scenes from Greek rural life have been depicted on the urn. He says that art can narrate a beautiful story better than poetry. So, in his opinion, art is superior to poetry. Now, focus on the next 6 lines, and you will see that Keats builds up beautiful pictures in the minds of the reader through a series of questions. Under the shady trees of a forest, he finds some figures and he questions whether they are gods or human beings. Tempe and Arcady are 2 ideal rural sites in ancient Greece. Some female figures are also there. Some men or gods are chasing them. Those girls are trying to avoid their touch as if they don't want to be captured by them. In the last line, he mentions musical instruments that are being played. Overall, the whole scene creates a feeling of extreme happiness and atmosphere of sheer joy and passion. The next stanza. In the second part of the poem, he says, heard melodies are sweet, but those unheard are sweeter. Therefore, ye say, soft pipes play on, not to the sensual ear, but more endeared pipe to the spirit deities of no tone. In these lines, he focuses his attention on the picture of some musician who is playing on some musical instrument like flute, but as pictures are silent and cannot convey any sound, he uses his imagination, juxtaposes it with reality, and says that the music we hear with our physical ears is sweet, but the tones that we listen to only in our imagination are even sweeter. He addresses the musician in the picture and tells him to continue his silent music. Fair youth beneath the trees, thou canst not leave thy song, nor ever can those trees be bare. We get a feeling of envy in these lines. When Keats says that the beautiful young musician and his song have got permanence in art, just like the shady green trees above him, the cruel hand of autumn cannot shed the leaves of those trees, as that moment has now become frozen in time. Another scene on the urn captures the attention of the Keats, where a bold lover is about to kiss his beloved. But the artist has stopped him still on the verge of that kiss. What does Keats say? Bold lover, never, never canst thou kiss. Though winning near the goal, yet do not grieve. She cannot fade, though thou hast not thy bliss. Forever wilt thou love, and she be fair. Keats says, or we can we get a feeling of rejoice. Keats is rejoicing by thinking that the lover's passion will remain intense forever, and the beauty of the girl will never fade because art has bestowed immortality to both. In this second part, we find the poet wondering about the superiority of imagination over reality and permanence of art compared with the transitory or temporary nature of life. The third stanza. In this part, the writer continues with the same idea in this part. Here we find that the word happy occurs for 6 times, and forever has occurred for almost 5 times. See, ah, happy, happy boughs that cannot shed your leaves, nor ever bid the spring adieu, and happy melodist, unwearied, forever piping songs forever new. More happy love, more happy, happy love, forever warm and still to be enjoyed, forever panting and forever young, all breathing human passion far above that leaves a heart high sorrowful and cloyed, a burning forehead and a parching tongue. And as you see, that word happy occurs many times, and we see how Keats is overwhelmed with the feeling that death and decay cannot ruin the beauty, the youth, passion of love, the most pleasant season of spring, which in itself is sign of life, as art has given permanence to all. The trees in the picture will be green forever. The musicians will play on his song without any feeling of fatigue or tiredness, as usually happens in real life. Similarly, the passionate love of the beautiful young man will remain at its peak of excitement, and unlike real life, it will never subside. Let's move to the next part, that is fourth stanza. Who are these coming to the sacrifice? To what green altar, O mysterious priest, leadst thou the heifer lowing at the skies, and all her silken flanks with garlands dressed? What little town by river or seashore or mountain built with peaceful citadel is emptied of this folk, this pious morn? And little town, thy streets forevermore will silent be, and not a soul to tell why thou art desolate can ever return. The fourth part, this particular stanza, it brings a change in the subject. From lovers and musicians, we are taken to a scene of sacrifice that was a usual religious ritual in ancient Greece, where sacrifices were offered to please the gods, mostly in the spring season. A congregation or a group of people have been shown on the scene with a religious leader, a priest, and a young cow whose sides are decorated with garlands, and it is soon to be sacrificed on the altar. If you focus on the next lines, we see that while Keats watches the scene on the urn, his imagination takes him beyond that scene, and he thinks of a peaceful town built perhaps on a mountain, or somewhere by riverside, or maybe on some seashore. That little town in Keats's imagination will remain empty for ever, as all its people are there on the altar to perform the religious ceremony on that morning. So we have a change in the mood. From the lovers, we are now on another scene that is of religious nature. Let's move to the next part, that is the final stanza. And here again, in this final part, just like the first one, Keats has once again given more than one name for the same urn. He calls it Attic shape, which means a piece of art that belongs to Athens or Attica in Greek. Fair attitude, which simply means beautiful thing. He calls it silent form, as it cannot speak, and the poet has to deduct meanings from the picture on his own. अब आप देखें कि आइडियाज़ रिपीट हो रहे हैं. यही बात वो बिगनिंग में फर्स्ट स्टैंजा में भी कह रहा है कि वो साइलेंट है, साइलेंस के साथ उसकी पार्टनरशिप है. सिमिलरली फाइनल स्टैंजा में जब वो इसको सम अप कर रहा है तो वो आइडियाज़ रिकर कर रहे हैं. एंड फाइनली ही कॉल्स इट कोल्ड pastoral, and we remember that in the first part he called it sylvan historian. He finds the urn enigmatic and baffling, as the concept of eternity cannot be fully comprehended by human being. Same is the case with art. For Keats, the urn has become an infinite and eternal piece. he says that with the passage of time, the present generation of human beings dies. When old age shall this generation waste, thou shalt remain in midst of other woe than ours, a friend to man. When this present generation of people will pass away, the urn will remain in its place as a friend to mankind among all the sorrows and sufferings of human beings. And what does he further say? To whom thou sayest, beauty is truth, truth beauty, that's all ye know on earth and all ye need to know. अब अगर आप आखिरी 2 लाइन्स पे गौर करें तो आपको कोटेशन मार्क्स नज़र आएंगे. जो इसके डिफरेंट टेक्स्ट हैं उनमें ये कोटेशन मार्क्स डिफरेंट हैं. कहीं पर ये सिर्फ फर्स्ट 5 सेंटेंसेस के 5 वर्ड्स के गिर्द हैं कि ब्यूटी इज़ ट्रूथ, ट्रूथ ब्यूटी. तो कहा यह जाता है कि दिस इज़ एक्चुअली द मैसेज ऑफ द अर्न दैट कीट्स सीम्स टू अंडरस्टैंड. कि जो अर्न है वो ये मैसेज कन्वे कर रहा है कि ब्यूटी और ट्रूथ आर दी सेम थिंग. और कहीं पर ये कोटेशन मार्क्स जो हैं वो पूरी आखिरी 2 लाइंस के गिर्द मौजूद हैं, जैसे कि यहाँ आपको नज़र आ रहा है. तो वहाँ ये समझा जाता है कि अगला पार्ट भी अर्न ही का कहा गया है, ये कि वो पीस ऑफ आर्ट ये फुल मैसेज कन्वे कर रहा है. और जहाँ पर कोटेशन मार्क्स ब्यूटी पर ही एंड हो जाते हैं वहाँ ये समझा जाता है कि जो फाइनल पार्ट है दैट इज़ ऑल जी नो ऑन अर्थ एंड ऑल जी नीड टू नो, ये मैसेज है कीट्स का अपने पढ़ने वालों के लिए. तो क्या कह रहा है? एंड फाइनली टू कीट्स इट सीम्स that urn seems to convey a message to humanity that beauty and truth are same. This statement it gets support from a comment of Matthew Arnold, who has said, to see things in their beauty is to see things in their truth. In a letter, Keats himself writes, what the imagination seizes as beauty must be truth. Okay, dear students, I think this is enough for the time. Please carefully listen, and if you have questions, just note them down. We can have a meeting on Zoom. I'll share the link, inshallah, and we can also have discussion in our WhatsApp group. Take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.